Hey everyone, and welcome back to Joey's Retro Handhelds. I'm Joey, and today we're going to be reviewing the Lenovo Legion Go. Let me start off this review right away by thanking Lenovo for sending this over for review, but as always with anything that I'm ever sent, they had no input in what I say and they haven't seen this video ahead of time. Because if they did, they might not like what I'm about to say next, and that's the Lenovo Legion Go just isn't for me. It's a great device, to be sure, but the actual device is just not for me personally. Just too big for me. It's just not comfortable enough for my hands, and I have smaller or average hands, I guess, and it's a bit too big for Joey's hands, put it that way. So it's not going to be a problem for everybody. A lot of people have a lot bigger hands than I do and all that sort of thing. But for me, the way that I hold things, the way that this is situated and all of that, it's basically just not a fit for the way that I play games. This device is basically square peg, round hole when it comes to Joey's comfort. That's really my only major gripe. I have other minor gripes that we'll get into throughout the video, but I want to share just right off the bat that, hey, for me, this isn't the best device, but it might be for others. And also, there's a lot about this device that makes me want it to be good. And we'll get into that because there is good tech under here, and it's a really good device for a lot of people, and I want to share why that might be, because I'm still leaning towards keeping this device, but for other uses. So Lenovo, thank you again for sending me this. Continue sending me things, okay? The first thing that stands out when you get the Lenovo Legion Go is just how absolutely massive this is. There's no other way to put it. This dwarfs every other handheld that I've ever owned in just size, weight, everything. But once again, for a lot of people, that's a good thing. And just for me, it's not. It's just a little bit too big, a little bit too heavy, and all that. However, when you realize the amount of tech that's actually inside of this device, it all makes sense. So let's just do a quick rundown, and I'm not going to go through all of the specs, but the ones that actually seem important to me or that I think people might care about. Quick rundown here, but the important bits is this is a Z1 Extreme processor, a massive 8.8-inch 1600p 144 Hz IPS screen, 16 gigabytes of RAM, 2 USB-C ports, a trackpad, and even eGPU support. Oh, and if you didn't know already, the controllers pop off and you can use the right one upright in what they call FPS mode, or just use them like you normally would Joy-Cons on a Nintendo Switch. More on that later. To me, the parts that have stuck out quite a bit is number one, the screen is just absolutely beautiful. And you could probably tell it already just from how I have it here, but I'll do some other shots and throughout the video and you'll be able to see just how nice of a screen it is. It's large, it has 1600p support, 144 Hz. It's just a great package in a big device. But the second part, and what I like to look at a little bit more, is the eGPU support. And that I think is absolutely big for a handheld like this. For those that don't know what eGPU support means, it basically means that you can connect this device to an eGPU, which is basically just a case for a computer, kind of, just to make it simple. You put your graphics card on there, so I have an RTX 3080, put it right on the eGPU, connect it to this, and now you're using the RTX 3080 to power this device. So you can kind of imagine how good of a upgrade that might be for a lot of people. Then you go a step further, dock this, and now you turn this into an actual desktop replacement. So you have monitors coming out of this and just pretend it's your actual PC. That's pretty cool because then you can just take this out on the go when you're at home, dock it, and you have all the benefits of an actual computer plus a mobile computer. And I would love to show you what this looks like, but Razer didn't get back to me about the Core X, and by the time the eGPU that I ordered from AliExpress arrives, it's going to be a long while. So I might do a follow-up video on just eGPU support, but for today's purposes, just imagine I connected all the things together and it all works perfectly. Now, you don't need a graphics card for this device. The performance with the Z1 Extreme chip is already really good for a handheld. And besides the screen, it's probably one of the best things about this device, is the performance. I don't play a lot of newer AAA games already, but if I did, this would be the device that you'd want to go for, because it'd be able to handle those games the best that you can get in a handheld form factor. But to just give you an idea of the kind of performance that you can expect, I've been playing Forza Horizon 5 at medium settings, 1600p, and FSR is on performance, and I was able to get just straight 60 FPS throughout the game. That's kind of big. For a more modern game, I was playing Lies of P at 1200p, medium settings, FSR was on performance, and I was still getting around 50 to 60 frame rate with small dips into the 40s. So once again, that's pretty awesome for a handheld. Now, the caveat to all of that is that your games aren't going to last long on battery life. You're going to get sub 2 hours playing at the kind of wattages that you would need to play Forza 5 or Lies of P at a good frame rate. But to be honest, I think with the size of this thing, it's not really mobile compatible in a way that you're just going to bring it everywhere you go. But for the places that you will, so an airplane, traveling, at home, you're going to be tethered to some sort of plug. And I don't think that's a big issue, but it is something that you might want to be aware of in case you needed this for situations where you needed a longer battery. Going backwards into that FPS mode that I talked about earlier, and basically you slide off the controller from the actual tablet, see, calling it a tablet already, and you dock it into their little whatever circle thing it is, and it just turns into a mouse. So you can play games like that if you want. A lot of people are playing shooters that way. You could play Doom, just holding one controller in one hand, holding this in the other, and just moving it back and forth. And I'm not going to do that because it's going to make noise on the wooden counter and it's going to pick it up in the mic. But just imagine me moving this around and using it as an actual controller, and I'll show footage of what that looks like. For me, though, there wasn't any time while I was holding the Legion Go in the weeks that I've had it that I was like, hey, you know what I'd be really wanting to do? I want to play FPS mode. To me, it was something I tried out for the first time and then never went back because I just kind of see it as a gimmick. It wasn't really fun, and I can't think of any really times that I would use it. Most of the time when I'm playing this, it's on my couch or somewhere where I'm lying down. I'm not at an actual desk because if I was at an actual desk, I would use my actual gaming computer. So it doesn't make sense from a feature perspective because it's just not something I'm ever going to use. However, the ability to take off the controls and actually use those remotely is a feature that's really cool, and I could see a lot of people using because you can use it in the same way and just navigate around windows and all that sort of thing with the actual devices. But for the most part, I kind of see the FPS mode part as a gimmick and probably not something a lot of people will care about past the first time they use it. And just to go further on that point, I kind of wish the FPS mode just didn't exist. And let me explain that. When you're holding the device, even when you pick it up, there's buttons on the side, there's buttons on the back, and there's all these buttons on the right side of the controller because of FPS mode. Then you have just small amount of buttons on the left that are for normal back buttons. So like the ROG Ally has it, Steam Deck has it, all of that. But when you pick up the device and while you're holding it normally and all that, your hands are constantly touching the FPS mode buttons that are added here, and it just doesn't feel good. Now, the good thing is none of those buttons actually really do anything for games. So it's just the actual feeling of pushing them that's kind of annoying. But if you're in a game and you push those buttons accidentally, it doesn't do anything unless you map them. So a long way of saying it kind of adds just unneeded annoyance that just doesn't need to exist. So I probably would have liked them to just not had FPS mode, considering I don't think it's really a system seller. But it exists, and for people that like it, it's probably a good feature. But I think for the most part, a lot of people just probably wouldn't need that at all. But when you do take off the controllers and you use them in the Joy-Con mode, and I'm going to continue calling it Joy-Con mode, but you know what I mean. When you use them wirelessly like this, it's really cool. And for a lot of people, I think they like that aspect. If they're just going to put this on a table somewhere like that, for me, I don't run into a lot of situations where I would do this. But if you want to use this as a screen to watch movies on, shows on, and just use these to kind of navigate around so you don't have to get up, it's a good option and something that I think is a good benefit and doesn't really take away from anything by having the ability to do this. It's just not something for me that I personally care about, so it's just kind of an added feature that just doesn't do or move the needle at all for what Joey wants. I would love to just ditch the old desktop big desktop that I have, and it's a fractal design torrent case that's massive, and just go with this plus a graphics card and connect everything to my monitor, because that would be perfect. You have this little device and you can bring it with you and it's your computer. And I'm going to be traveling to CES in a month, and I would love to just bring this, have everything that I usually do already on it. So my video editing software, audio editing software, all of that. And I can do whatever I need to while I'm at CES without any compromises. That, I think, is the biggest benefit to something like the Go compared to the Ally or the Steam Deck and all of that. Because while the Ally has eGPU support and it's proprietary, so you have to buy Asus's version of it, you can use whatever you want with the Lenovo. So you can go and buy the AliExpress, and I forget what it's called. I think it's the UT3G, and it's only $130 somewhat dollars. Connect your graphics card to it, and there you go. You're done. That's all you need. That, I think, is the best benefit to the Lenovo Legion Go compared to others. Just the absolute ability to be versatile in the way that you use it. Now, I mentioned comfort, and I want to talk about that a little bit because if there's anybody that has maybe similar hands that I do, and I guess for reference, if we want to show the back of what that looks like, but the general idea is that I have an issue with just how blocky the sides are. So when you're holding it, they get into your palms quite a bit, and it just doesn't feel nice. So you don't have the ability to wrap around like you normally do, and you're left holding it in a weird way. And because my hands aren't big enough, I can't hold it in the way that Lenovo wants me to and feel comfortable. So this just always gets in the way. It would have been perfect if the sides were curved the same way that the Ally or the Deck does, so that you could have that comfort. But unfortunately, they don't have that here, and I'm guessing it's probably because of the tech that you have these as Joy-Cons, that they had to fit a lot of stuff inside. But it would have been nice to see, because as of right now, as much as I want to like this thing, it's very hard for me to do so. But I have other gripes as well, so let's talk about those. The first is the fan, and I have the fan on right now. It's on quiet, and I tried to put on power saving mode, all of that, because I wanted the device to be in shot, but my mic actually might be picking this up. So if you happen to hear a little bit of fan noise, I'm going to try and cut it out for the video. That's what that is. Now, under normal circumstances, when you're normally playing a game, the fan can get quite loud. And it's not just the fan, but the coil whine of it. You can hear it, and it's annoying. And it's enough that your partner next to you can notice it and be like, is that your device? What's going on? And so that's just another kind of an annoyance, is the fan, because compared to other devices that I have, the Ally or the Steam Deck, it's definitely a lot louder than those and a little bit more of an annoying pitch. Then we get to the software, and it's extremely half-baked. I don't have a nicer way of putting this, but it feels rushed in a bad way. I sort of get the feeling that Lenovo got wind that the Steam Deck OLED would be coming out, and so they rushed this device out with whatever software it had at that point, just to get some sales in before the Deck actually came out. Now, that's just speculation on my part, and I'm just making guesses, so nothing official, but it's just the way that I feel when I play with it. Lenovo has their launcher software called the Legion Space, and you activate that with the button on the left controller at the top. This is meant to launch all of your games from one single spot, and just be a hub. Realistically though, you're going to be disabling this from ever running, and you're going to be either utilizing Steam Big Picture mode, or something like Play Night, which is my personal favorite. And that's fine. The extra stuff that's added here isn't really something I'm going to take away points for. They're just making their own little launcher, and everybody does that. But the actual pop-out control panel isn't that great either. First, you activate it from the top of the controller, which is exactly where you expect the start button to be. And even weeks later, I am still pushing this damn button, trying to just push start. And I keep forgetting that start and select are at the bottom left, and that's a bit of an annoyance. Now, the control panel isn't completely terrible. You can go ahead and adjust TDP, you can show the performance monitor, adjust brightness, volume, and all of that fun stuff. Plus, you can change the resolution and refresh rate. But all of that is expected at this point. If it didn't have that, we'd be having a different conversation. But they've kind of done the base needed to get a system like this up and running. There isn't anything special that's further than that. So, for example, where the Deck can do per app settings for a lot of this, the Legion Go can't. And so for my use cases, for example, and I talked about it earlier, if I'm playing Forza Horizon 5 at 1600p, and then I decide, hey, I want to go play Lies of P, and that's 1200p, I have to go in and make those setting changes every single time. God forbid I want to play another game that's maybe at 800p, and suddenly I'm switching refresh rates and resolution almost every time I pick up the device, and that gets to be really, really annoying. I think it's both a blessing and a curse that the Lenovo Legion Go has a high refresh rate and a high resolution. Because while it's awesome that this can do 1600p, 144 Hz, realistically, you're not going to get that out of a lot of games, but also because of the lack of options and settings that Lenovo has with the Legion space and control panel and all of that, it makes it a bit of a chore to do so, to the point where I just basically set this device to 1200p, 144 Hz, and left it at that. Then I would just change the in-game settings to match whatever I needed. And then I just dealt with whatever stuttering and screen tearing would happen because of all of that, which isn't a good solution. I will say that the lack of VRR is definitely noticeable on this device though, especially compared to my Ally. There's a lot of times where I can see that stuttering, even just playing Forza Horizon 5, where it's not a straight 60, and you kind of wish that it had that VRR just to smooth it out a little bit better. And I know the deck doesn't have it, but the deck can't run nearly the amount of games that the Lenovo Legion Go or the Ally can. So when you have this better screen with refresh rate and hertz and power and all of that, you want to be able to use it and use it good. And I think that's where it falls flat a little bit, is just not having that VRR support, which I don't consider a necessity, but after using it, it ends up being a little bit of a hindrance in a lot of games. Now, I mentioned 800p earlier, and the reason for that is I was testing out 800p integer scaled, which is something a lot of people do to be able to play games faster, because you can set the resolution to 800p, integer scale it so it looks a lot better than it normally does, so like on the deck, and just get a bit of a benefit of just better refresh rate and better performance and all of that. The problem with that is I tested it and it didn't look good. So for me, I'd rather go with a 1200p low settings than 800p medium settings with an integer scale. Because to my eyes, I find 1200p just looks a lot better than that 800 does, even with the less settings for low. But for other people, you might like that 800p integer scale, so it's going to be a person-to-person preference on which one you prefer, and thankfully we have the option to do both. But anyway, jumping back to my overall thoughts on the Lenovo Legion Go, and this is 100% a tinkerer's device. This is full-blown Windows, and there's no hand-holding here, so you're jumping right in, you have to know Windows. If you don't, this isn't going to be the device for you. And they just kind of expect you to just do whatever you want. Lenovo basically said, here's the hardware, everything that you need, now go ahead and make it your own. And that's kind of how I feel as somebody who has this, that you're just in a tinkerer's domain. You can do whatever you want with this thing, but you have to know how to do it. So just on that point, I already did a video comparing the Steam Deck OLED and Asus ROG Ally and the Lenovo Legion Go, but let me just recap my thoughts on where I think all three might be a benefit for certain people, and if this might be for you. The Steam Deck OLED is the easy recommendation for most people. You turn it on, install a game, and you start playing. It literally could not be easier. However, for a lot of people, and myself included, we're not Linux fans. So we want our devices to do a lot more than what that can do. And the moment I jump into desktop mode on the deck, which is quite often, it falls completely apart for me and I just want my Windows back. So then the natural next step for most people would be to look at the Asus ROG Ally. There's a larger community, a lot of the bugs have been fixed already, the software has matured a lot for Armory Crate and what Ally has, and you can have a good time with Windows, especially with variable refresh rate and a 120Hz screen. It's kind of the middle experience between the deck and the Go. But then the Go comes in, and Lenovo basically said, you want Windows, here it is, in all of its glory, and we might get there one day with software for what we're doing, but today isn't that day, so try and figure it out on your own until we do. We're going to pack so much tech into this device, give you a great processor, a great screen, eGPU support, pop off the controllers, have everything that you need right now, and just tinker and make it your own. Then it's up to the community to just make it better, and we'll see how far Lenovo supports it. That's sort of how I see all three devices, and it really just depends on what camp you're in, which device might make sense for you. So the question at the end of the day, and the question that I usually answer at the end of all of my reviews is, will I be keeping this and will I be using it? And my current answer is, I don't know. Right now, the Steam Deck OLED covers my needs for any kind of gaming that I need to do for PC gaming, because I can do it on the deck with a nice screen and it's comfortable and all of that, and then I can stream the rest from my actual PC, so I cover all of my bases that way. The Ally, however, kind of got the short end of the stick here because now the Deck OLED ate its lunch, I guess, and I don't really have a need for my Ally anymore, and that's likely going to be something I'm selling. So it kind of leaves me with the Deck OLED and the Lenovo Legion Go. And so the Go is a weird one because there's days where I wake up and I'm like, why do I have this? And then there's days where I wake up and I'm like, let me go back to that and see if I like it again. That's kind of how I feel right now. And I told you that I ordered an eGPU and I do want to try that out and see how good that might be. But the Go might actually end up surviving in this household a little bit longer than I thought it would, just based on the fact that I really want to like it. And I'm going to try and see if there is a way for me to do so, but it's going to be a tough uphill battle with just how hard it is for me to hold this thing comfortably. Because at the end of the day, right now, I really only need a gaming handheld and not a full desktop replacement, as much as I do want to try it and see if it might work out. So if it doesn't work as a gaming handheld for me, then I'm not sure if it has a spot in my house. But I'm going to try. Time will tell which way I end up. That's going to be it for this one. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts are on the Lenovo Legion Go and your experiences with it, or if you're not into it, what your thoughts are. Just let me know. I'm curious. Don't forget to like and sub to help the channel grow, and hope you all have a good one.